Will Christian, better known as Black Jack, was the fearless head of an outlaw crew that called themselves the High Fives Gang. Together with his older brother Bob, he carved a path of chaos through Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Arizona, knocking over banks, hijacking trains, and ambushing stagecoaches whenever fortune smiled their way. Born William Christian, Jr. in Fort Griffin, Texas, in 1871, young Will was the son of William Sr. and Sally Christian. His father had come from Kentucky and put down roots in Texas soon after the Civil War ended. The Christians eventually relocated to Baylor County, and by 1883, they'd pushed even farther north into the wide-open Texas Panhandle. Following the Oklahoma land rush of 1891, the family turned up in Pottawatomie County, settling near the Little River just south of Tecumseh. It was in Oklahoma that Will and Bob got tangled up with a gang of small-time crooks and bootleggers. On April 27, 1895, Deputy Sheriff Will Turner set out to find Bob Christian, who had a warrant hanging over his head for grand larceny. Turner traced him to Violet Springs, a wild and lawless border town in the territory. Bob wasn't by himself. Will Christian, a man known as Buttermilk John Mackey, and Foster Holbrook were there with him. When Turner confronted the group, Bob Christian dismissed the warrant and reached for his weapon. Turner fired first, drilling Bob right in the chest, but the bullet merely knocked him backward, since Bob had been wearing a steel breastplate beneath his shirt. The four men immediately returned fire and cut the deputy down. Eventually, all four were tracked down and arrested. When the trials concluded, Holbrook was acquitted. Mackey received a 2-year sentence, and both Christian brothers were given 10-year prison terms. But while Bob and Will waited in the Oklahoma County Jail for their appeals, someone smuggled in a couple of pistols. On June 30th, 1895, they overpowered the jailer and busted out along with 2 other prisoners. They attempted to commandeer a wagon that was passing by. Oklahoma City Police Chief Milton Jones arrived on the scene and gunfire erupted. Both Jones and one of the other escapees were killed in the exchange. The Christian brothers made their escape into New Mexico and Arizona, returning to their old ways, stealing livestock and hitting banks, trains, and stage lines. Will's enormous frame got him the nickname 202, though it wasn't long before people started calling him Black Jack because of his dark features. Out in the Southwest, the brothers assembled what came to be known as the High Fives Gang, named after a card game that was all the rage back then. Black Jack and Bob were joined by Bob Hayes, George West Musgrave, and Code Young. On August 6, 1896, the High Fives set their sights on the International Bank in Nogales, Arizona. Bob Christian and Code Young held the horses outside, while Bob Hayes, George Musgrave, and Will Blackjack Christian walked in. Things went south almost instantly. Will aimed his gun at the cashier while Musgrave circled behind the counter and trained his weapon on the bank president. As the cashier stuffed money into the bag Blackjack had thrown him, the bank president made a dash for the exit. In the mayhem, the cashier pulled a pistol from beneath the counter and shot Musgrave in the knee. Blackjack snatched up the bag but let it fall as he rushed for the doorway. In the confusion, a newspaper man named Frank King saw the bandits fleeing and fired his .41 Colt in their direction. He didn't hit any of the gang members, but he managed to wound 2 of their horses as they galloped out of town. A posse formed quickly, commanded by Deputy Sheriff Bob Leatherwood out of Tucson. They overtook part of the gang near Skeleton Canyon on August 12, 1896. The outlaws wheeled around and let loose, sparking a brutal shootout that claimed the life of Deputy Frank Robson. The gang then vanished, crossing into Sonora near the San Antonio Pass in the Patagonia Mountains. Despite continued pursuit, the outlaws stayed one step ahead. On November 18, 1896, an 8-man posse arrived at the Diamond A Ranch in the San Simon Valley of southwest New Mexico, where several gang members were thought to be holed up. The bandits had ridden out that morning, but when they came back, the posse was lying in wait. Christian caught sight of the lawman, and bullets started flying. Both Christian and Hayes had their horses shot out from under them, but they dove clear and kept shooting. Seconds later, Hayes was struck down by lawman Fred Higgins. Blackjack Christian and Musgrave slipped away once more. On April 28, 1897, a 5-man posse followed a group of fugitives to a tight gorge near Clifton, Arizona. When the officers sprang their ambush, another firefight broke out. Christian took a bullet to the side and tumbled from his saddle as the remaining outlaws escaped. Believing the gang had gotten well away, the lawmen headed back to Clifton. That afternoon, a freighter named Bert Farmer discovered a gravely wounded man lying beside the road. It was Blackjack Christian, still breathing but fading fast, moaning, "Somebody shot me this morning." He died moments later. Farmer loaded his body onto a lumber wagon, brought it into town, and displayed it for the townspeople to view. The narrow gorge where that final ambush took place is still called Blackjack Canyon to this day.